everyone, and welcome to episode 91 of the Rich Cheese Radio Podcast, your place for horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular watch opinions. My name is Schmidt, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy. You guys know him, you love him, Mr. Brodinky. Bro, what's up, man?
Pretty big week for me there, bud. Um, Apologies to the listeners. I know they were probably looking for the drop this morning, but
Yes, yes, yes.
I was just a bit run down yesterday from
Is that how we say it nicely these days? We're a little run down.
yeah. Well, the worst part was I wasn't even like hungover. It was a combination of I did hang out pretty late the night before, and then I just had a very full day of work and no time in between to recuperate. So by the time I got there, plus I'm also packing up for a little excursion this week. So there's been
Uh-oh.
a lot going on. I had to tie up a lot of loose ends at the job and make sure my ass is covered on a lot of fronts. So and part of being in the position that I'm in, if people have watched shows like The Bear and stuff, you're just a natural control freak, I guess, but it's sort of just you're just very uncomfortable having somebody hold the reins. So,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, your name's on everything, right? Everything kind of falls on you, and so it's tough to uh, entrust that to somebody else when you've done this as long as I have. So
Yeah.
a lot going on. For those who don't know, I alluded to it. It was my birthday yesterday. It's a very big day for horology in general. So I share a birthday with Zoe, Watch Girl Off Duty, which is neat. We found that out
Nice.
by accident somehow one day, and then every year I wish her a happy 20 birthday. And then also the Hodinky Travel Clock
Yes, we
shares a
can't
birthday with
forget.
us. That's right. Which I think it turned 3 this year. So a big
Some
happy
people
birthday.
people don't forget.
No, people do not forget. And every time I bring it up, people are like, "Oh my god, I forgot all about it." But then they're like, "I'm so happy you reminded me." I'm like, yeah.
We have
So
to call cringe where cringe is needed to be called out.
yeah, but overall, yeah, really good little weekend. Had a fun birthday. A buddy of mine got me an Orient, so that was neat.
Oh yeah, I saw the post. It's
Little divey guy.
yeah, yeah,
Yep,
yeah. A black one, right?
yep.
Nice.
Something new, something fun.
Is it a Mako or is it a Ray?
It's a Ray, I believe. It's
Yeah, yeah,
circular indices.
yeah, yeah. The nicer Mako.
But yeah, it was cool. Had a little barbecue and stuff, and then some of the guys came over from work, and the dudes I work with are a little younger than I am, so that hence
Yeah,
we stayed up a little late
yeah,
and
yeah.
had a little fun, but still had to show them what was good on the old pong table. Haven't lost a step since my heyday. Raining buckets,
There you go.
so hung with the young kids. They all made it to work the next day, which was great.
Even better, even better. It's like I know what you were doing last night. I'm
Right. So
here. You
don't
better be here.
yeah, I'm gonna be there. Don't be that guy, right? So but so just laying the groundwork for why we missed the drop a little bit today.
It's okay. I think our listeners will give us one day. It just
They'll
means
be all right.
it's delayed gratification.
Yeah.
That's all it
Hey,
is.
I could have been a jerk and been like, I'm going on vacation. Let's just skip a week, but I'm not going to do that. So
I mean, we haven't done it yet, right? We haven't skipped a week yet, and
now we've postponed a few days sometimes for
yeah.
either a holiday or travel or business, whatever it might be. But been pretty consistent. Anyways, how are things on your end? There you go.
Good man. It's been a long day for me. I'm on the road currently, which is what maybe why I sound a little different, but it's been good. No complaints. Had a great weekend. Just got back from my own personal trip last week with the fam. Went across the Midwest and back home, and now back in the Midwest. So here we go. We're here. We're alive. We're thriving, as the young kids say.
That's like the new
Thriving and vibing is what
yeah,
they say.
yeah. I like to just throw in surviving because that's that now that I'm older, that's how I feel.
That's exactly how I feel right now.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to survive.
exactly. So weird week, not a whole lot going on. I guess just the between the pink Barbie watches and the Oppenheimer Hamiltons, like nobody really wanted to get involved this week, so it was not a lot dropped. Really had to
Yeah.
scrape the barrel here.
Yeah. Good old Barbie Hammer has or Barbieheimer has had an effect.
Yeah. So, but we did get a couple things. Nothing crazy, but Bulova did drop a watch. It's a reissue, pretty neat one. It's called
Yeah.
the Jet Star. And there's a few different flavors, but you get a red one, which is really nice. You can have a gold tone. There's a silver. They come in a cushion case with a really retro bracelet. Kind of looks like the one that Timex just brought back for their GMT.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
That kind of weird. What would you call that? 4 link, 5 link? What even is that?
Ah, man, I really don't know. It's yeah, I don't know. I was gonna say it's like a modified H link, but there's like a center connecting point, so it's not quite an H link.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. They kind of look like a Batman logo,
Batman.
right? Fence posts. I don't know what you want to call it. It's like three vertical and it's like two H's side by side.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Maybe that's the better way to describe it. We'll call it the double H bracelet. How about that?
Okay,
It's
all
a
right.
double H link. There you go.
Yeah, because it's not quite a W
No,
and it's not quite an H, but it's neat. I like it. I like the bracelet a lot.
it's cool.
Um,
It's different. Certainly different.
yeah, and it looks like this has a smooth sweeping quartz movement.
Yeah, so this is the Bulova 262 kilohertz. It's a technology they debuted a long time ago in their precisionist line,
Right.
which I was definitely not a fan of because those watches were pretty ugly. No offense to anybody out there listening to has a precisionist.
You know you're always
Uh,
gonna get that one DM. I love my precisionist.
I know. I'm already ready. I'm already ready for it. But no, I mean, I think this is an example of being able to scale the technology down in size because those precisionist models back in the day, they were ultra thick, very big watches. It's almost like Bulova and Invicta had a baby with kind of a impressive technological quartz movement. And it looks like over the last few years, they've been able to scale down the sizing of the movements to give us something that's a little bit more wrist friendly, especially something like this, which is very cool. I could have done without the 262 kilohertz on the dial.
Likewise.
I'm just like, it looks cool. Like the watch looks very cool. I don't know if that was necessary to put it there. Like we get it. It's a precisionist movement. Put it on the case back for the love of God, because it's just not necessary. Not necessary. But I digress. The watch overall looks really cool. And it's in 40 millimeters, which is even better.
Right. And it looks a little bigger in photos because of the shape of the case and everything and sort of the angles and everything that goes on with it. But yeah, 40 mils, 20 mil bracelet. So really good overall dimensions. I really like I don't what do you even call this index style with these I'm seeing them more and more. I mean, a lot of vintage reissues have them because they're pretty vintage looking, but I don't know what you call this style of index.
I don't either, man.
It's like the same
It's
ones
something
that
that
are
came
on
out of the
the Rowing Blazers Seiko fives.
yeah, it's something that's really, indicative of the late 60s, early 70s. Right when you started to see the kind of big, bold, vibrant colors coming into play, you have these big, chunky, blocky markers. But they break them up because they're multicolored.
Right.
So you have kind of like this rectilinear shape. You have a predominantly, let's say the red version, right? You have a predominantly black hour marker with a small area that's going to kind of have a silver tone to it, but there's a red stripe down the center. So I don't know what to call them. Kind of the best description I can give them, but I don't know. It's cool, man. Like
It's
I think
cool.
if
Yeah.
you're interested in buying something that's just kind of a, you know, cool kind of streety vibe, vintage vibe, low key watch, they're not very expensive. Retail is 595 on this, which I imagine at some point here in the near future, you'll probably be able to get it for far less than that. But cool design overall.
Yeah. I like the loom dots around the outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, sharp watch. I mean, for a week where nothing else is going on, why not?
I hear it, man. I hear it. The double H bracelet. There you go.
All right, and one more, and this one's sort of just a fun release. So Casio hooked up with a Kentucky-based sneaker and streetwear company called Oneness, and because everybody knows Kentucky for bourbon, this watch is inspired by bourbon. And I bring it up partly because we have friends who are very into the whole boozy thing, so I'm sure
Hmm.
they'll think this one's neat. But it's pretty cool. It's very much a bourbon watch. I mean, you have some pretty heavy branding on it, which might not sit well with everybody. But it is a collab. And probably the neatest thing about this is, I mean, I think the strap, it it's like a gradient strap. It gets darker as it goes from the tip with the head to the tip to the at the tail end. And it's so it just gets it's like a bright amber and then it goes to a dark, almost a dark brown, just like you would see, a bottle of bourbon if you're holding it in certain light and things like that. So
Yeah, it's cool, man. This is again, you have kind of a heavy branding with the oneness logo on the top, and it has a little slogan, "What are you waiting on?" Which I think is kind of a cool reminder to just kind of like seize the day and live in the moment.
yeah,
But other than that, this watch is super cool. So it's based off of the DW 5600 platform. It obviously has a little bit different number than that because it's a collaboration watch, but it's super cool. Like for any whiskey drinkers or bourbon enthusiasts out there, I can think of a good person. Our friend Kelly would be all over this watch. I mean, she loves G-Shock and she loves bourbon. I
yeah,
can't I
that's
can't
that's a
I literally cannot imagine a
match
more
made in heaven.
perfect watch for this. But regardless, it's a very cool watch. I love how the resin case is predominantly see-through, especially on the watch head. And then, as you were mentioning, it kind of gradients out to kind of that darker ambery color towards the end. Super cool. Plus, it comes in an awesome box, man. It comes in like a bourbon box.
Yeah,
Like it's a
it looks like a box
vertical.
of like JD,
Yeah, it's cool. It has like the little, quintessential like bag that goes over the alcohol bottle and everything. It's a very cool presentation. Price point's $130 USD. Um, very, very, very cool collaboration. Kind of random, but I like it and I'm here for it. I
Yeah, it
think
was
it's
just
very
something I,
cool.
I kind of stumbled upon, and I was like, all right, I guess we could talk about this. It's not a whole lot going on, right?
Yeah, definitely not a whole lot in the watch space, but
Sometimes this stuff gets overshadowed.
it's okay. It's all good. Had we done this yesterday, we probably wouldn't have had anything to talk about.
Yeah, I was like, did anything happen this week?
Oh man, it's hard to keep track with everything that's going on, but this is a cool collab.
For sure, for sure. Um, so that's it for new stuff. But this week, sort of inspired by my own events, we were going to talk watches and birth years, right? It's always sort of a something that the watch folks kind of get into, and I would like to own a pretty cool birth year watch at some point. I would have to figure out what it's going to be, but everybody likes to have something that's sort of as old as they are, and and has aged simultaneously, concurrently with them, right, throughout time, and it's sort of just a reflective thing. And I think it's fun to sort of seize the moment of the era that you're born in, right? Because obviously a watch that's from however many years ago is going to have a lot of cues based on what the sort of a sign of the times, right? It's going to have design or colors, or maybe even just the brand, for example, might have been prominent during that era, and maybe it's either
Yeah.
fallen off or disappeared altogether. So I think it's cool, sort of in the nostalgia realm, which I think is big amongst collectors, and I think people who get into this hobby are very sort of into the nostalgia thing, because I think everybody, even if you're only into collecting sort of the sporty stuff now, will eventually dip their toe in the vintage at some point, even if it's just a cheapie or a
Yeah.
fun watch, right? Like even if you're gonna go back and get like a Swatch Jelly or something like that, like you can have fun with nostalgia without spending, you know, five, six figures.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
we wanted to talk a little bit about birth year watches and sort of inspired by that. Right, we're gonna have a few watches from our birth years that we would enjoy, or at least are inspired by
Yeah,
the years we were born. Um, I'm an '80s baby. You are a '90s baby, not
I
by
am.
much, but
Yeah.
I've got some. You've got some. I also have uh, a little background on each one of those years, just a little um, lay of the land, if you will, for each one. So I guess because I came first, so I'll start with that one. So I'm an '85 baby, and major events of 1985. So I found a really fun website, sort of tells you everything that happened. A lot of the stuff is sort of historical based. Gorbachev becomes Soviet leader. There was a TWA flight hijack, yada yada. But just as far as things go, right? You had the number one song was "I Want to Know What Love Is" by Foreigner,
Okay.
followed by
Okay.
"Careless Whisper," if you're familiar with that one,
Okay.
by
Yeah.
George Michael.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you've never seen the Sexy Sax Man on YouTube, I highly advise you,
Oh my God, that I forgot about that video where the guy would just start playing the sax
bro.
in the
It
most
is
random places.
classic, and he's
Um,
dressed like George Michael, and he's playing the whole song. You know this one, and
yeah.
he's blasting this out like in the mall. He's walking on the food court, stepping on tables and shit, and he's
And
just
he's like
like,
thrusting, like he's
yeah.
like thrusting in the air, and it's
And he keeps
hilarious.
getting shooed away by people and security. You got to see it. The Sexy Sax Man. It is
I'm
great.
gonna I'm gonna have to rewatch that because it's been a minute since I've seen that.
It just hit me when I read George Michael. I was like, oh, dude, sexy sax man.
I
It's a damn
love it.
classic.
I love it.
Right. Top 10 movies, Back to the Future, very appropriate because in the movie he's an 85. Beverly Hills Cop. You got Goonies. You got Police Academy 2. I mean, yeah. No, so
Hey, I do love Police Academy. There's
no,
no
it's a
question about
classic. It's
that.
just funny. Like there's a lot of sequels. Rambo First Blood Part 2. Like those are
Yes.
in like the top 10, it's kind of weird. But TV shows, Cosby Show, Family Ties, Murder She Wrote, Miami Vice for our boy McD. He's a big Miami Vice guy. So just kind of neat stuff. So the '80s is an interesting era because everything. I mean, if you think about watches in general, there's a few brands that stick out. I have three watches that I would like to own from this era.
Okay, okay.
I guess I'll start with a Captain Obvious. One of my favorite watches that I looked at for a long time before they exploded in price, which sucked. Is the some people know this as the Clint Eastwood, but it's the old root beer GMT.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I believe
yeah,
it's
for
a
sure.
16753.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and so it's the old sort of maroon and gold bezel root beer GMT, and they made these with tiger eye dials.
Yep, yep. Yeah, and the
And
what were they calling nipple dials, right?
yes, you can get the nipple dials with the
Yeah,
pointy sort of gold indices on it, and you get a nice two-tone bracelet. They come with a Jubilee. Some of them come with an
yeah.
Oyster, which is also kind of cool, but I like the Jubilee personally on that. And man, this is just such a cool watch because it's sort of just it's to me it speaks like to that time period based on the color scheme. Like, obviously you look at the new root beer and it's not it doesn't translate to me. Like they made it very, sort of like a dulled, I don't really know what you
Yeah,
call that
I don't
color.
like it. I
It's
don't
like
like it.
a burnt goldish color. And then
Yeah, it's not
the
as
the older
it's not
one,
as beautiful as I would like it to be.
the older one is very dated looking, but it's also kind of what I like about it.
Yeah.
Right. Like those colors are they almost barely go together. Like when you look at it and you're like, Rolex made this. Like when I first got into watches, I was like, is this a real Rolex? Like these colors are kind of weird. Like usually you go, you know, red and black, red and blue, all black, black and gold. Like those are like pretty classic combinations. Like, what is this sort of maroon mustard color? And I was like,
Yeah.
all right. Like, so I looked into it more and more, and I was like, oh, these are actually kind of cool. And then eventually, I was looking at one when they were around like 8 or 9 thousand. I was like, it's a lot of money. And now they're a lot more than that. So I'll never wind up with one, but overall, a very cool watch. I mean, one that again, it's just strange enough to make me love it.
Yeah.
I guess that's how I would put it. I mean, they also make matte dials of this and non-nipple indices. But again, that's sort of what I like. Whenever I speak about like this era of Rolex and liking it, is because you sort of just it just was what it was. Like they just
Well, they just
whatever
did
whatever
whatever they
they
wanted
had
to do.
whatever they had lying around, they put together and made a watch out of it. It wasn't like, we have to make this variation and it's going to be coveted and valuable. No, they were just making stuff for people to wear,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
to make a great watch, which is what I liked about the older versions.
Some people would call those the good old days.
The good old days, yes, yes, yes. My second one is going to be very on the nose. A watch that I believe this watch debuted in '85, so bonus points there. This is the Seiko 7C46 7009, also known as the Golden Tuna.
Hmm.
So, an iteration of one of my other favorite sort of oddball watches, but like adoring the oddball. I like that GMT because it's kind of weird. The Tuna, also kind of weird. Definitely a quirky watch, and now you're getting sort of a gold accent to it.
Yeah. I
And these are
mean,
just they're just super neat. I mean, this is a classic. Everybody knows what it is. I mean, I've spoke about it plenty of times on here. I talk about how, they sort of use that case design and technology to evade the need for the helium escape valve.
right.
And you know, part of what I love about the brand, they kind of just do their own thing and they come up with their own solutions to things, and they're just quirky, and that's what I like about them. And they make fun watches, they make wild watches. They really do make something for everything. And now, if you're unfamiliar with this, these dials are a little different than the tuna dials you're familiar with now. They have very aggressive indices,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
this is I think this is my favorite handset as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they changed it, and then you could still get this handset on some of the newer models, but not all of them. Like if you're looking at
yeah,
tunas now, like you look at the Darth tuna or whatever it might be. Some of them have these handsets and some of them don't. And for me, that would be a deal breaker. Like if I'm looking for modern tuna, I would still want one with this tuna handset.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
But I
they
mean,
they they did a reissue of this one too, right? Not too
they
long
did.
ago.
Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
yeah. This is a cool watch, and it's so quintessentially Seiko. And I love the fact that, that it's the 80s, like they're like, yeah, let's do a two-tone diver.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Like the
What's more
gold tone
80s
on
than
it
that?
says 80 to me.
Oh, 100%. This is like, the dad that, fought in Vietnam. He's coming back and he's like hanging out with the kids now, living the good life, the family life. And he's like, let me go get a watch. It still shows that I'm an adventurer and I can kick ass, but it's classy now. It's refined. This is the military two-tone dad watch. I
Yeah,
love it.
and I mean, you think '80s, right? You think '80s watches, you think, two tone Datejust, two tone Constellation, two tone Tag Heuer, like
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that was just two-tone everything.
yeah,
That's everything was two-tone. And that
APs,
was
everything.
that was certainly the era for it. And this is a cool watch. Whether you go with the original, which I prefer, and especially like you said, the markers, um, they did kind of like this triangular and circular motif, but they did these kind of like border lines around them.
Right.
That looks really cool. Because like you said, the new modern version, like the Marine Master, they have like the kind of broad arrow style hands. It's not the same. It's not the same. What do you call these hands, bro?
I was trying to think of it. I have no idea. I guess they're just called tuna hands. I don't really know.
Yeah, it's a very interesting handset for sure, but it's so cool.
Yeah, and this one was sort of an upgrade to the grandfather tuna. If people are Seiko heads out there, they sort of they've tweaked the movement a little bit. They tried to upgrade sort of the build of the watch as well. So a neat watch overall. Definitely another one that's gone up in price a lot, which sucks because I really do want either a grandfather tuna or a golden tuna one day because they're just again neat, quirky, nostalgia, and it would make a great birth year watch. So
Yeah. Is that actually what they call it, the grandfather tuna? Like
the first iteration is the grandfather tuna.
dang,
So
grandfather tuna.
grandfather tuna.
Gotta love the names, man.
Yeah, it's another reason I like this brand. It's just you have endless amounts of names. I mean, some of them are kind of lame, some of them are neat, but
But I mean, again, it's just like,
take the good and the bad.
yeah. But I mean, just like so many cool names, like the Shogun, the Samurai, the turtle. Like
Yep.
there's just like they're so on the nose sometimes that you're just like, yeah, that makes sense. I like it.
All right. Last one I got is a bit of an oddball for me, at least. Very 80s. I think it fits perfect. It's going to be a little bit of a triple dipper here because you can kind of pick your poison because there's multiple variations on similar styles here.
Hmm.
But so Tag in the 80s had these sweet divers, and you could get them in black. You could get them in black with a loom dial, or you can get them in
Yes.
steel with a loom dial and a black
Hmm.
bezel. Um, they're all sort of similar references. There's a 980.031, which is one I think Bond wore this actually. It's a
Yeah,
night diver. Yeah,
yeah, it's the full it's the
I think T Dalt wore.
that's correct. That is correct.
And so there's another, the all black is 983.015. Actually, that's a mid size version, but still, you'll get the idea. It's sort of all blacked out. Really cool, though. Jubilee bracelet. And then there's another one, 980.115N is sort of the steel night diver look. But I mean, we've talked a lot about night divers recently because Citizens been bringing them back a lot, and
Yeah,
Tag
yeah,
even brought one back recently.
yeah.
But these are also quartz, but super cool. I mean, there's something about the full loom dial. I don't have one yet,
I'm telling you,
but
brother.
I'm itching for one.
I'm telling you, brother. We got to get on the full loom game because it's awesome.
And these full loom dials have really cool indices because they have the dots are
Or
fully colored in
black.
black.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then they have the triangle and stick markers at the 12, 9, and 6 are not filled in at all. They're just outlines.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned that you mentioned this watch actually because there was a guy that I saw post on Instagram today and I don't remember who it was because it was just popping up on my feed. But this is a quintessential Bond watch.
Right.
The Tag Heuer 1000. It was worn by Timothy Dalton. I think it was the Living Daylights, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me, but I'm pretty sure it's the Living Daylights. But basically, essentially his first film, and there's an action sequence where he's like fighting this guy in like a Jeep truck or something like that, and he's like choking him out, and you can see it on his wrist, and it's a very cool watch. But the problem was these watches, they didn't age too gracefully because they were sports watches. People used them pretty heavily, and this was very early rudimentary PVD technology
Mm.
back at this time. So a lot of these watches were trashed because the PVD would just come off. And I saw this guy do a restoration of one of those original watches where he stripped all the PVD off and he did a Cerakote in the black,
Okay.
which is the same type of material that they use a lot in the firearm industry to change the color of firearms. And it's an extremely hard wearing material. It basically has similar properties to something like a ceramic in terms of like abrasion resistance, but it is a coating. It's not a ceramic itself. But I was like, dang, that would be awesome to pick up, kind of like a junked up one and like resto it and do it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at one right now. There's $1,500. Is it? And this one's actually in pretty good shape. It's on eBay right now. $1,500. And this also has one of those, I forget the manufacturer, but it has that like really cool 80s case, you know. Um, and it's been a long day. My brain literally cannot think of all these names, but there was this case with kind of like the really pointed angular crown guards was super popular. Hoyer used them a lot as well. Other brands did too, but there was a very specific case manufacturer that did the cases for some of these Hoyers and some of these tags back then, and it's like super iconic. But bro, if you get one, you should go full black PVD and gold. Just go
Yeah,
full
yeah.
black.
I think that's the way to go. I think you're right about that.
Just like power move 80s watch. Full send.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, so let me lay out 1991 here, and this is a year that I remember. So, Hubble telescope launched.
Hey, I
As you
didn't
met,
know that. I didn't know that actually. 91.
that's what it says.
Okay. All right.
USSR comes to an end.
Okay, that's also good.
As you mentioned, birth year of the internet,
Yes.
formally, I guess.
I'm as old as the internet.
That's nice. Yeah, Chicago Bulls won. Oh, Giants ride wide right against Buffalo. That was a good one.
Ooh.
Big fan of that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Popular music, Justify My Love by Madonna. I've seen a lot of Janet Jackson, Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Gloria
Okay.
Estefan. This was a big diva year,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. How could it not be?
However, movies, Terminator 2, number one,
Okay. I'm here
banger.
for it. I'm
Yep.
here for it.
Robin Hood, City
Okay.
Slickers, a classic. If you're not
Okay.
familiar with
Now
City
that,
Slickers,
yeah, 100. How could you not be familiar with City Slickers?
bro, I feel like nobody knows about City Slickers, and
Dude,
it's a classic movie.
that movie's great, and so is City Slickers 2. Okay.
Yeah,
Because
not a
there was
letdown, not a letdown,
definitely
because
not a letdown.
you get John Lovitz in the second one,
Yes.
and he's
Yes.
hysterical. But yeah, I mean Billy Crystal wrangling cows and doing
Oh
cowboy
man.
stuff.
Yeah. And especially because they're city boys. Like these are guys that grew up in the city. They know nothing about being cowboys. And then they actually are forced to be cowboys, and it's awesome. But
Now,
my favorite one is City Slickers 2 when they had to go hunt for the guy's gold.
in the first one where they're arguing over how to set the VCR, like every time I watch that, I die. Like they're arguing over how you like because back then for all
Yes,
the
yeah.
kids out there
I
because
forgot about this
the
scene, but yes, I know
the
what you're talking about.
the demo I look at the demographics and stuff of listenership and my own page and stuff once in a while, but the demo is usually 20s to 30s.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
some of the people will never know that when you used to have to, first of all, you had to put a VHS in your VCR, and then
yes,
you had to press, if you wanted to record something, you had to press record and play at the same time. I don't know why. And it would record on this VHS tape. And then, you had to do the whole thing where you had to sit there and rewind it. And it took a whole 7 minutes. And you had to listen to the thing. There was no instant playback. There was no
yep, yep.
streaming. This was like some of the worst technology ever, but you had to deal with it. This was before DVD. This is,
And
not even
and
close to Blu-ray, but
and there was no way to fix a mistake. Like it was done. Like if you recorded wrong or you recorded over something, like it was gone.
yeah, there was no
Done.
DVR, no TiVo, no nothing. So, anyways, these machines, these VCRs, they always had some wild way of they had a clock on them usually, and then trying to set that was a pain. And then also you could set it to record at a time, like if you knew you
Mm-hmm.
weren't going to be home, set it to record at a time, which also never ever worked. It would never be the thing you try to record. Either it
Oh
would be on
man.
AM or PM, the wrong one, or it would just decide I'm going to record whatever the hell I feel like, or
Yeah.
somebody would change the channel on you and screw you. So
Yeah.
either way,
You end up recording QVC.
yeah. So one way or another, uh, it was a disaster, and just listening to them go through it will always be funny to me because now we have such better options. But
Yeah.
hilarious. If you don't know it, City Slickers, hysterical.
Just
Um,
remember, ladies and gentlemen, be kind. Rewind. I love it. City Slickers. Oh man,
Silence of
what
the
a
Lambs,
oh
Adam's
another. I mean,
Family.
another good film, but not one of my favorites. But it's a good
Yeah,
film.
very good, very good. TV show, 60 Minutes, Roseanne, Home Improvement, classic.
Oh yes, I
All
was
right.
actually watching that yesterday because it's on Netflix and it's on Hulu, and I was just like watching it from the beginning again. Such a great show.
Well, there was a period there where Pam Anderson was Heidi the Tool Girl, if you remember that,
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet,
in her
but
prime. Um,
yeah. Oh yeah, I'm
not too
excited.
shabby.
I'm
But dude,
excited.
Al Borland, classic as hell.
Yes,
Wilson,
the best.
dude, I knew a guy in college who went as Wilson for Halloween. He just wore a bucket hat and he had a bunch of popsicle sticks taped together and put it up in front of his face whenever people asked him what he was. Hilarious.
Oh man, that's funny.
A very classic costume. But yeah,
That's not a bad costume.
it's pretty honestly, and the kid was kind of like known for being kind of like a dope, but like
Yeah,
hilarious. Like way to go.
yeah, yeah. Deep cuts.
Right. Deep
The deep
cuts.
cuts. Yeah.
Deep cuts. But yeah, Tool Time, Home Improvement, great show. Great show. But that kind of gives you a feel for where we were in 91. So why don't you hit us with a little early 90s horology here?
Okay, so my first pick is actually a watch that I do own. And coincidentally, I didn't know that at the time that it was a birth year watch. So, funny story, many years ago, I was in college and I was getting into watches, but at the time I could only really afford, court stuff. So it was like fashion watches and Nixons and all kinds of
Yep.
stuff that by today's standards I would want to beat myself up. It's like, what were you thinking? But I remember one time in college, late night, streaming on eBay or surfing on eBay. And I was like, man, I see these things about these Seiko divers. And this was kind of when the modding space with Seikos was really becoming big and it was a huge deal.
Bone
And
hands.
yeah, bonefish hands.
Bonefish hands.
And I remember I was like, I want to get one of these watches because they're so cool. And I ended up doing this like late night eBay purchase. And I think at the time it's probably $80, which wasn't a lot of money by today, but at the time was a lot of money. I mean, we're talking 3 cases of beer here. Like these are priorities. And I ended up buying this Seiko diver, and it was a Seiko diver 7002J.
Mm-hmm.
And this was you know, classic diver, is kind of like the precursor to what would become the SKX.
Right.
And to this day, it's one of my favorite watches. I absolutely love the watch. It needs a service desperately. I've talked about it a few times on the podcast before, but I had just a classic black dial version of this watch, 7002J, and I bought it and it came from like Singapore or something. So I was like, man, I'm totally getting scammed. Like this guy's gonna take my $80 and send me nothing, right? But it came and it was my first automatic watch ever. So not only was it my first introduction to mechanical watches in my own personal collection, but it turned out many years later, I was looking up the serial number for it and I found out it was made in my birth year, which is so weird, but a very, very happy accident. So not an expensive watch, even still today, a couple $100, but one that's near and dear to my heart. I wore it all through college. I partied in that watch. I did manual labor in that watch. I did everything in that watch, and it still kept amazing time. Like I said, it's a little worse for wear now, but pretty awesome piece. I'll never get rid of it.
Yeah, cool part about Seikos is a lot of times you can actually track it to the month
Yeah,
based on
yeah, yeah.
the serial.
Yeah, I didn't do the month at the time, but I'm curious to know kind of when it was. But yeah. And see, for me, this is what it has what I wish the modern SKXs and all these, 5KXs and all these other
Street
watches.
divers and whatever.
It has the right type of second hand. Okay. It's got a martini olive second hand, the way that
Mhm.
God intended it, not this weird like loom plot on the butt ass end of the second hand. Like
The
nobody's looking at this.
reverse lollipop.
Yeah, I'm like, why? I want to see the seconds, not the butt of the seconds. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense to me. So this is a very cool watch and super, super basic, super Spartan. It was 150-meter back then, and
Yep.
it's not a day, it's just a date movement. Um, but super bulletproof. Very, very cool watch.
Yeah. Sort of encapsulates the nostalgia aspect.
I love it, man. I love it. I don't wear it a lot anymore for obvious reasons. Like I said, it needs a service and everything like that. But um, it just sits there like a faithful companion. I can still pick it up every single day, and she just starts going. Like it doesn't matter what's going on. Like I can pick it up, look at it for 5 seconds, and she'll start running. And it's a testament to that movement and especially Seiko, just in general. These watches just don't die. It's like the battle hardened, like forerunner in the middle of Africa that some warlord's using to drive around. He's driving on a bucket, like it just won't die. But it's a cool watch.
Yeah, very Subaru.
Yeah,
Right.
man. Yeah, just like you can't kill it. Like,
A guy who works for my company has a Subaru with like 300,000 miles on it. And
oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
how does this thing stay together?
Yeah. I saw a video of a Toyota truck, and it was like one of those like Instagram shorts or whatever. And it was basically like this dude, and it's like the Toyotas just don't die. And it was like this car that had a literal tree growing inside of it. Like it
Oh,
was
wow.
completely rusted out. The floorboards were gone. A tree and a bush had started to grow through this thing. And this guy hooked up like, a battery cable to this battery that had been, I don't know, sitting for 20 years in the muck and all this stuff, and he started it. And you go around, he kind of he's showing the engine running, and it's running rough, but it's running.
Yeah.
And he goes around, he pans into the cab of like the vehicle, and there's literally no seats. Like they're all completely rusted away. It's just frame, metal, rust, and a tree. This thing is still going. I'm like, yep, that's my little Seiko watch right there. That's how she is. So
All right. What else you got?
I got a couple more. So a watch that's near and dear to your heart in some facet. But this is the Hamilton 9721 LL Bean Edition khaki.
Very nice.
So I've never owned the khaki myself. I absolutely love the watches. Um, I don't know, there's just something so rugged and go anywhere, do anything type of feeling about these watches. And I think if I was to buy one right now, why not go for a miniaturized LL Bean version, especially for my birth year? It's a cool watch. It's part of a collaboration back before collaborations were a thing. And it's just cool. It's just rugged, looks awesome, simple little, mechanical or automatic watch and has LL Bean on it. So I think it's cool.
Yeah, I almost picked the one of the old Hamilton GI watches
Okay. Yeah.
for I was looking at them and I was like, all right, I was like, this is a maybe. I was like, I'll put it in the maybe pile. So it's gonna be an honorable mention, but I almost picked one because they were just they're very cool. They're just it's exactly what you're getting today, but it just seems somehow more authentic, you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, there was one that keeps popping up when you Google the 9721. Like there's one literally from 1991. It's like a posting, and it sold for $295.
Pocket change.
I know, man. I mean, what's going on? I know it. I feel it. Okay. So, this pick for me will be very surprising. Um, but as you know, there's really one brand out there that really spans the test of time, and certainly one that you can track down based on years, which is even more easy to do with this brand. But uh, there's a watch out there that I've always kind of really liked, and it pains me to say this, but my next pick is it's the Rolex 15210. This is the 34 millimeter engine turned bezel Oyster
Just
perpetual
say it's an
date.
OP, right?
It's an Oyster perpetual date. Yeah, 34 millimeters um with an engine turned bezel. And I don't know what it is about this watch. I had forgotten about it actually. And when I was doing the research for this, I was looking at everything. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. This collection existed. And it's just so cool. Like there's several different dial variations, silver dial, black dial, blue dial,
That's
all
a
with
nice
the
blue. I've
all
always liked that blue.
yeah, that's a really good blue. But the one that's really attractive to me the most that I never thought I would actually like, and the more I've been looking at it since, making, this the research for this, it's a bright white dial, but it has Roman numerals in addition to the baton markers.
Interesting.
So I don't it's super weird. It almost kind of looks like a Buckley dial if you're familiar with that,
Yes. Okay.
but the Roman numerals are much smaller because in the Buckley dial, the dial is just Roman numerals. But this one you actually have indices and then you have miniaturized Roman numerals, but they're done in like this very classic bolded font that looks really pretty masculine to me. And I'm not a Roman numeral guy at all. I don't own, nor have I ever owned a timepiece with Roman numerals. But I would 100% buy this watch right now. It's a very, very good looking timepiece. And, as far as Rolex watches are concerned, they're really not that expensive. 5 grand, 5,500, something like that. Sometimes even lower. But it's a very cool looking watch. And I love the engine turn bezel. Because again, if I'm going to buy something that's out, I don't want to buy what everyone else owns. Like everyone owns an OP, everyone owns a Datejust, everyone owns a sub, blah, blah, blah. Like those are boring to me. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go something very different that I would never see myself in and certainly not see on anybody else. And I've always loved the way that Rolex did the engine turn bezels back in the day. I love them on the Thunderbirds that we talked about previously. Like when we first started recording the podcast, we talked about Thunderbird. My dad had an older one.
Right.
That was also an engine turn bezel. Like there was just something really cool about those
The
designs.
old Air Kings had them.
Exactly, exactly. But this one, I just love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I've always had sort of a soft spot for the precision and the Rolex precision, the actual watch, and the Rolex date. Like before
Mhm.
they, again, this is sort of before they became glamorous, I guess you'd say. Like they were just good old reliable, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's just it's a part of their history that
It's
I
back
like,
when
you know, I really like.
it's back when they used to make watches for people,
Right.
not flippers, not resellers. They used to just make watches for hardworking people that wanted to buy a quality hardworking watch. That's what it was. And it's so sad that it's not that way anymore. And it's games and it's notoriety and cachet and flip culture and resell culture. Like all of these things rolled up into one now for the brand. But back then it was just about good, honest working timepieces for good, honest working people. And I wish that that legacy would come back because that's when it was fun. That's when, like, this is the watch that somebody would buy and they would wear for their entire life,
Yeah, for sure.
Like that was the one thing. And I don't know, there's just something kind of very nostalgic and romantic about that idea that, like, this is your one faithful companion for everything that you do in your life. Okay. My last and penultimate pick is the 1991 Omega, because you knew I had to have an Omega in there. The Omega Speedmaster Perpetual Calendar.
Oh, okay.
This was a 50-piece production run for the Japanese market only, and it was a 39 millimeter solid gold case Speedmaster perpetual calendar with a moon phase and chronograph. This watch is awesome. um, this is low key luxury. I mean, obviously, it's a very complicated timepiece, but when you look at it, it's a very unassuming watch. Unless you know watches, this is a type of watch that people are just going to pass you on the street when you wear it because they have no idea what it is. Um, but it was made in 50 pieces only for Japan, but a very, very beautiful watch. And according to the Omega website, when I was doing the research for this, it was the most complicated series produced movement that Omega has ever made,
Wow.
which is pretty fascinating because now Omega has the chronochime movement, which we talked about several episodes ago, which is now their most complicated movement ever produced, but that's not produced in the series. So it's produced kind of like a one-off each time, according to what I understand. But this one was produced in a production run of 50 pieces in totality. And I think it's cool. I would totally get one if I could find one.
I'm still trying to find this thing.
Just,
Speedmaster Perpetual Calendar.
yep. Google 1991 Speedmaster Perpetual Calendar.
Boom,
It's a
boom.
3 subdial register
Oh, okay. I
chronograph
see it.
with a moon phase.
Moon phase at 3. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, this is a deep cut here.
I mean, I figured I had to end with something big. And I guarantee you, most of our listeners have probably never even seen this watch.
Well, I haven't either. So there's that.
This watch is cool.
What's the size on this?
39.
39. Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't look like a 42.
No, it's definitely a 39. This was the same type of case that they use for like the Schumachers
Yeah.
and Speedy Reduced. Like it's that generation of watch.
Oh, Sotheby's is selling one on a bun strap.
Of course they are. Because only a crazy person would actually own this watch would be like, yeah, why not? Let's just put on a bunt strap. That's how people wear these
That
watches, you know.
reminds me of a time back in the day, not back when I was like 18, 19, and it was when you're that age, it's all about cars, and me and my bros be sitting around drinking beer, watching like Barrett Jackson auctions, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so like one episode comes on, usually you see some cool stuff like old Cudas or whatever. This guy comes on with a gigantic old Volkswagen bus, and you're like, what the hell is this guy doing, right? This thing sold for more than any of the sports cars or vintage collectibles, Camaros, whatever. It was like a bidding war, and it went up over $1 million. And I was like, for a Volkswagen bus.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the sleeper, bro.
That's what it is. People are attracted to like oh, I want to be the guy who has something different, you know?
I mean, this watch is that. Like again, there's 50 of them ever made. It's probably one of the rarest watches in history. How many Omega perpetual calendars do you know of? I
Not too many.
Especially not with a chronograph,
No, for sure.
right? And this is when Omega was doing stuff when nobody noticed. You know what I mean? Like this is post quartz crisis.
Right.
And they're like, you know what? We almost went insolvent during the quartz crisis. Let's do a perpetual calendar chronograph. Like, let's go big.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then 3 years later, they do the tourbillon, right? So like, it's kind of bold moves when you think about it in the history of watchmaking. Like, it's kind of bold moves.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
if you're gonna go out, you're gonna go out with a bang.
yeah, I was gonna say you can go through all that effort for nothing, and that's like,
Yeah. So this when I was discovering this watch, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the one I'm gonna end on because this is perfect.
yeah, that's a good one. That is a very very deep cut.
Thank
I'd
you.
be I'd be surprised to know if anybody had seen or known about this one.
Yeah. I don't even know the reference number because I tried to Google it on Omega's page and it uses the old referencing system. So it's not really something that comes up. But if you Google 1991 Omega Speedmaster Perpetual Calendar, it will come up and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Very nice, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's a good way to end it out, man. I don't think anybody's gonna top that one as far as
We're gonna
wacky,
go.
wild, or other from their own birth year.
We're
But
we're gonna go out on top, baby.
no, I do know we have a few older listeners. I'd be curious to know what they would be going with.
Yeah.
So some people go back pretty far. So I'd be certainly curious. I know a few people who have birth year watches, but
And DM us them. DM us
yeah,
your
I'm
birth
curious.
watch picks. Yeah, and
I'm
we're curious
curious
to know what you guys would choose out there. So DM us your birth year picks.
for sure, for sure. All right. I am probably gonna head to work early tomorrow, so I'm gonna call it quits here. Got some packing to do. I got travel ahead of me, so I got a big week. I will see you again next week for episode 92.
92.
Um,
That
till
much
then,
closer.
yeah, till then, have a good one. Travel safe, and you, the listener, I'll see you soon.
Yep. Likewise, buddy.
All right, peace.
Take care.